How's it going, my fellow gamers? It's your GM Jared here from Nothing Venture, Nothing Game, and I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly from D&D 1's newest playtest, the expert classes. There's a lot of things going on in here, but this isn't a review of a cohesive review of the whole thing. There's a lot there, and I don't want to spend 2 hours I want to dive into the classes. So we're gonna have class conversations later on, because there's 2 out of my 3 favorite classes are in this section: the Bard and the Ranger, and the Rogue. But man, rogues, that's Jeff's expertise. Anyway, so stick around. We're just going to be talking about the rules that are changing, what's good, what's bad, and what's really ugly, and what I didn't like as a GM from a GM's perspective. Now, stick around. I'm going to shrink. There's going to be the rules pop up behind me. It's going to be pretty awesome. So stick around. Woo! Hey, welcome back. So I shrank myself down through the power of magic, and I blew up on this side over here. Over here, my hand ducks behind it. The Unearthed Arcana for 2022, the playtest. So a few things I wanted to talk about before we jump into this. One, I got to watch the stream. It was really awesome. A lot of people did live actions and stuff like that. So if you want to do live stuff, just let me know in the comments below. That'd be cool. Live reactions. I have a lot to say on stuff like live reactions. If you want to see stuff like that, let me know. It would be fun to do stuff with the community like that. Just in the comments below, if you want to comment and stuff like that, that'd be cool. Say yeah or nah, just like your reviews or your conversation pieces. Anyway, in that conversation, we heard from the big 2. They were talking about, hey, this is the stuff that we took into account, and they said over 40,000 people did the surveys already, and this, I think the surveys just ended, so they released this and the surveys ended. So that's pretty awesome. So that's a good, right? So let's put that in the category of the good. 40,000 people, that's amazing. I'm gonna say this: when 5th edition dropped, I didn't even know they went from from 4th edition to 5th edition, or there was a playtest happening. I wound up at a game store and they were like, hey, we're playtesting the newest edition of Dungeons and Dragons. Do you want to play? I was like, sure. I remember my character. It was really fun. We were fighting kobolds, and my character had a flaw was they always had to have the armor immaculate. And I remember I crit hit a kobold. I did max damage. I was a fighter, and then just the GM described the kobold exploding into just goo and gore everywhere. And I stopped and I left I left my team, and I spent the next 3 turns just wiping myself off because of the goo. And the GM was like, oh, here's inspiration. So sorry, my puppy dog's next to me, so I gotta give her pets. But yeah, so I thought that was cool. I didn't know much about it, but 40,000 people, so congratulations to everyone out there. 40,000 people plus, because I know more and more people are just putting in their reviews. I did my review. I know a few of my players did their review, so that's really cool. Let's put that in the good. So let's keep that up, right? Let's keep that up, and we know they're listening to us, because another section on the good that I want to put in there is, and it's explained into this, in this playtest, they changed the crit hit and crit fumble system. They put it in as a you get the inspiration on a 1, and you don't automatically crit succeed on a 1, and you don't automatically crit fail on a you don't automatically crit succeed on a 20. You don't automatically crit fail, I believe, on a 1 on skilled checks. And they do kind of in this differentiate them. So they heard us. I mean, that was the biggest thing. People were, and monsters can now crit, but we haven't seen the monsters yet, so we still don't know how the monsters are going to play out. But currently, as it looks, monsters have gotten that ability back. So that's pretty awesome. That means they're listening to us, and they really are taking in our feedback and want to see us, the gamers, have fun. So all you gamers out there, you are doing amazing. Congratulations. So they talk about verse. So this is supposed to be backwards compatible, and everyone says everything's backwards compatible, right? When when you had the consoles, everyone talks about the consoles being backwards compatible. 3 to 3.5, they were backwards compatible, right? Fourth edition, you couldn't. It was a whole different system, right? And 2 to 3, it was hard to convert. I'm playing Pathfinder 2nd edition currently, and it's not backwards compatible. They didn't say it was backwards compatible, but I'm trying to convert it on earlier systems, and it's hard, even though everything's still very similar, right? Like, yeah, there's the 3 action systems, and don't get me about that, or magic, but like items and way the game works is generally still similar. So do I think D&D 1 will be backwards compatible? Yes, in the concept of, like, you could take Curse of Strahd and reverse it, right? They give us the capability of doing that, but I don't think it's going to be heavily backwards compatible, especially from what we see with the classes. A lot of the classes have changed dramatically just from these 3 classes. Like, we know they bumped down the capstone abilities to 18. I'm going to say that's a good, but additionally, I'm also going to say it's an ugly. And the reason why I say that is we already know, right? And this is just me kind of ranting and raving right now. We already know most games get to max level 10. It's only the rare few that get to 20. So obviously I know they can't be so dramatic and say, okay, there's only 10 levels in the game. With that being said, what we do see in the classes currently, some of them are cool, some of them aren't that great, but I feel like they needed to front load a lot more on the classes or make their abilities seem more. But like I said, we'll talk about the classes later. This is just me ranting and raving. So I'm going to say capstone abilities being shifted is a good and an ugly, only because how many of us have reached a 20th level game? I've done it once, and it was a 3-year campaign. Playing with my friends in 5th edition, it was like 3, maybe 4 years it took us to get to 20th level. And it was the same, well, it was the same players. Like, we never stopped being the same players. I got married in between us playing that campaign. So it was kind of crazy. But now we do a lot of shorter campaigns. Like, we have fun, but again, we kind of shoot for shorter because we know our time is limited. I know when I was younger, we would play campaigns, but they would fall apart because, you know, school and dating and so on. So I don't know, man. I personally wish they had done more with levels. Another good is, you know, the boons. I like that. I like that being like a now you get it automatically. So that's cool that all classes will be getting boons. So that's a good, right? But let's look at some of the stuff. So they talk about here the expert classes. We now know they divide the classes, the class groups right here. They talk about it. Now there's going to be experts, bards, rangers, rogues. Additionally, I believe they said the artificer is an expert also. It says it right there. Artificer is an expert. I do not understand. So I'm going to say that's an ugly. Why not just put the artificer in this system? We already have it with Tasha's. We know people like playing the Artificer. It's one of the better new classes that have come out. Why don't they just put it in? So that's, and for me, that's an ugly. I feel like they're just waiting and holding it. And they're going to release it in a book down the road, maybe in the DMG or a splat book. Just put it in. Like, we already know people want to play it, put it in. I understand why they can't put Blood Hunter, because I believe Matt Mercer owns that class. Like, that was a homebrew that he created, so they can't really use that. Mages, sorcerer, warlock, wizard, priest, cleric, druid, paladin, and warriors, barbarian, fighters, and monks. Those are the class breakdowns now. And the reason why that's important is because feats. Now this is a neutral. It's not a good, it's not a bad, or the ugly. I might say it might be a good. Some feats will have specifics. If you're an old school gamer like myself, and you're coming from 3 to 3.5, it looks like they're bringing back the feat chains, or a kind of a modern version of the feat chains. If you don't know what feat chains were, in older editions, you had to have a prerequisite feat to take the second feat. So you might have quick draw, which then led into a separate feat that allowed you to instantly, like on initiative, you could draw your weapon and then fire on that same turn. So, you know, as you leveled, you got better using the same skill list of feats. We know with feats, as per this, you now need some of the feats will say, hey, this can only be taken by the expert group or the warrior group or the warrior priest group, because Paladin is under priest, but I feel Paladin should fall under warrior. Now, I know a lot of people could argue the difference, you know, but that's where they placed it. You know, it says they're focused on healing. With lay of hands, the way it currently works, that's not the focus of the Paladin. Yeah, like you could build a healer Paladin, don't get me wrong, but most Paladins, they use the lay of hands to kind of like res their teammates. If the cleric, if the actual healer, the cleric or the druid goes down, or even the bard goes down, they can run over, give them 5 hit points, get them up. They're not healers. They didn't have a lot of healing in their caveats. So it's interesting that they put them in priests. I would have put them in warriors. That's neither here nor there. But we haven't seen what the Paladin class look like, because they have changed classes. So we know feat chains kind of coming back. Now, a good that I want to talk about is they've given us the arcane now it's arcane, primal, and divine. They've broken down the schools of magic into 3 different types. They've given us arcane, divine, and primal up to 9th level, and you get to see if they're rituals, which is cool. And you've gotten to also see where they kind of put everything. You know, is hex arcane, or was it, you know, oh, hex is a weird one, but like is detect poison arcane, or was it primal, or was it divine, or, you know, do they overlap? So it's good that we get to start to see where their mind's at. So that's a good, right? Now onto the rules glossary. Again, this is talking about the ability checks. They kind of broke it down again to the ability checks of either it's an attack roll, a saving throw, or a like a skill proficiency. And you know, they talk about how this works. That's a good. The typical difficulty classes, it's a base 5 system. That's why I loved 5th edition. Ironically, it's the 5th edition that's a base 5 for difficulty. So you know, new GMs can kind of pick it up, and I kind of explain it that way to new GMs, like, hey, if you're worried about making a difficulty class, set a difficulty in your head. It's a base 5 system. So if you're not sure if a 10 works, or you know, it's not really a 5, but it's not really a 10, well, then just let them roll, and if they get over a 5 and under a 10, they pass. So you don't have to say, oh, DC 7. You could just say, oh, it was between a 5 and a 10, because it was like not super easy, but not super hard, you know, not like, it might take a little finagling, you know. Or you could set it between 10 and 15. So you could say, oh, okay, just roll. Oh, you got a 13, cool, you pass, you know, stuff like that. It's a base 5 system, super easy to set DCs. Oh, it's super easy, 5. Super hard, 30. You know, base 5 system, love base 5 system. They've changed the equipping weapons. You can equip or unequip one weapon before or after an attack you may make as part of this action, even if the attack is with the unarmed. When you take the attack action, you can make one attack with a weapon or an unarmed strike. So basically, as you can equip or unequip one weapon before or after any attack you make as part of this action, as an attack action. So this is interesting. You can draw, now it's basically you're drawing a weapon as you attack. That's good that they explain it, because there's a problem with the 2 weapon fighting, and it's kind of an ugly at this point. So we get down to arcane spells, and this is great. They kind of talk about where their mind's at. So they give us Barkskin, which was a 2nd level spell, and in 1st edition, 5th edition, Barkskin was 1 action. It was concentration for up to an hour, and the target's AC cannot be less than 16, regardless of what kind of armor it has. So your AC is always going to be 16. Now they've changed it, right? So they've effectively changed what it's looking like. So you touch one willing creature, It's concentration for 1 hour, but now it's a bonus action. So that's really dope. I like that. I like that change. It's a bonus action. It makes it definitely more utilitarian in its action economy, because a lot of times you come into situations and you're like, oh, things just got hairy, I'm gonna cast Barkskin, that's my turn as a druid, I cast Barkskin, you know, so it kind of sucks. The target gains a number of temporary hit points equal to your spellcasting ability modifier plus your proficiency bonus. So that's great. As a druid, like level 1, you're looking at it just gives you temps. You know, I think the notion behind it is as you're fighting, the armor is kind of like cracking off because it is just bark. So I like that. I like that they're changing the action economy of spells. It's now a bonus action, which I really like, you know, so it's very simple. You know, so it's good that they're changing spells and reverting spells and moving spells in a new and interesting way, and making and looking at how players are acting and are being played. So that's really cool. I want to see what they do with like mage armor. Is that going to be like a you know, an action, or like how's it going to work, you know? And obviously its duration should be a really long time, but this just gives you hit points, so maybe they might change mage armor. So interesting to see here. Creature types, kind of similar thing. You know, the D20 test, this is the kind of the important stuff. It's ability checks, attack rolls, and saving throws. If something in the game affects a D20 test, it affects all 3 of these rolls. Whenever a player rolls a 1 on a D20 test, the character gains a heroic inspiration. The DM determines whether the D20 test is warranted in any given circumstance. So that's really awesome. Obviously, they're rolling back that whole, you know, they're kind of moving back that whole situation. Another good is the exhaustion condition. It's going to be cool. While you are subject to exhaustion condition, known in all the books as exhaustion, you experience the following effects: levels of exhaustion. This condition is cumulative each time you receive it. If you gained a level, you die if you reach 10, which is different. D20 falls. When you make a D20 attack, you subtract your exhaustion level from the D20 roll. I like that because exhaustion got incredibly, like, once you got higher than 1, that was it. Like, you knew it was coming. You were like, unless I can get out of this, it's going to be bad. It was a death spiral. So I like this. You could get up to 10, so you could have exhaustion 9 and kind of come out of it. Spell saving DCs are affected. Subtract your exhaustion level from your saves. Finishing a long rest removes 1 level. When your exhaustion reaches 0, you're no longer exhausted. It's very simple. I like this. I think 5th edition was really cool with the whole concept of the advantage disadvantage, and they were trying to not remove but limit the amount of heavy math you had to do, but you can easily do subtraction, right? Oh, I rolled a 10 and I have 1 level of exhaustion, it's a 9, you know. So I like this. It's a good, it's not an ugly. Expertise, again, it's very similar to the original. You can never have expertise in the same skill proficiency more than once, so they're letting you know, like, hey, you're not allowed to like double up, triple up, and it's just your proficiency bonus is doubled for that check. That's fine. I think if they were doing like, if they're breaking classes down to expertise and stuff like that, maybe you can allow the double up and then just say they have doubled proficiency and advantage, and that would, like, so the rogue is always going to be in stealth, you know. The wizard, well, it's not the expert class, but like the ranger will always have great, you know, tracking through survival. I think that will be interesting if the player just wants to hammer home that they're amazing in this one ability. That'd be interesting. Another good is the gaming set, the tools. They just now say it all costs 1 gold piece, which is great. You know, I think they're going to just a standard, like, gold piece is $1. So if you have a platinum, like in my head, that's the way I equate it. I know, like, you could theoretically have less, but in my head, it's $1, right? So you go to a tavern. Oh, how much is this drink? Oh, it's 5 silver pieces. Okay, it was 50 cents. You know, it was cheaper. You know, oh, you go and you want to purchase something and it's very expensive. Well, 200 gold pieces is $200. In your head, you could quantify that. I think they should just go to a standard gold, and just make it that, and then say like everything is similar to like nickels and dimes. Well, like silver is a quarter, and the copper is I would say like a penny, and then I would say like 100 pennies to a, figure it out, but just standardize to a gold piece. I like that. I think that's a good grappled condition. This got good. This grappling is good. Again, we now see more the new version of guidance, which is awesome. You have I think it's it's one of the better ones. It's a reaction which you take in response of an ally making a check and failing an ability check. So it's an ability check. It's a reaction, so it's great. I always thought it should have been a reaction. Giving it to someone and having it be a concentration is just rough, because you're like, okay, you have guidance, and yeah, it's a D4, but it's up to a minute, and once before the spell ends, the target can make add D4 to the number rolled before or after making the ability check, and then ends. So it's concentration for concentration's sake, because I'm concentrating on giving that one person advantage, not just giving them a D4. It's not even advantage, and then it ends. Most people play it as like, oh, I'm gonna open this like locked chest. Oh, okay, the the bard comes over, boop, guidance, or they come over and they're like, boop, guidance, and you keep them moving, or and then they make their check to add the D4, and then I just feel this is great. It's instantaneous. It's up to 30 feet, and you give them that check. It's a reaction. And it adds a D4 and adds a number to the roll. So they kept the whole D4 system, which is fine. Once the creature rolls the die for the spell, it kind of ends. But here's the caveat: they can't gain guidance until they finish a long rest, which is rough. That is really rough. It should be a short rest. That would be the one big thing I would change. So it's a good. It could be a great if it's a short rest. So now we get down to the heroic inspirations. Again, I talked about this earlier. A player character gains an heroic inspiration for rolling a 1 on a D20 check, and boom, that's that. And you can only have one heroic inspiration at a time. This is a great, and I am in love with this. It blew my mind. I love it. So influencing, right? So with the influence action, you can try to influence another creature. This action can be used only on creatures controlled by the DM, and they put that in. Great, thank you for putting that in. I'm not a big fan of like the players using charisma checks on players. Like, I'm not a huge fan with that. But anyway, they put it in. They say, hey, it's an action, so it's an action. So let's say you roll into initiative because the murder hobo decided to like pull a dagger on the priest, and you're like, whoa, everyone calm down, hold on. So it's an action, and it has 3 parts. Basically, they give you the types of creature, so the attitude upon the creature: hostile, friendly, indifferent, right? When you take the influence action, either role play how your character does that, and then you make your check, right? So it tells you, and now you have DCs for this, which is great. Thank you for putting in DCs. Makes it really easy. If the creature is indifferent, DC 10, the creature does as asked, as long as it's not like terrible. The person's like, hey man, unlock that door, and they're like, sure, I'll unlock the door for you, whatever, I don't care, it's not my business. Friendly, they'll go out of the way, they'll take a minor risk, it says, and then at a high level 20, they accept significant risk. And then hostile, to 10, the creature kind of thinks about it for a moment. Obviously you can change this. You could say that's a 15 if it's a unintelligent creature, so like a wolf or something like that, and 20, DC 20, the creature kind of does, as long as there's no risk or sacrifices involved. So that's really great. It makes it really easy to kind of interact with the world now, and you have DCs, and it kind of tells you kind of what should happen or shouldn't happen. Obviously, you only want to roll if there's a chance of success. That's kind of the key here. you know, if there's a band of murderous mind flayers and they're coming to eat the brains of an entire town and you're fighting against them, and you're like, hey dude, stop. I'm gonna say the mind flayer is gonna be like, no, we got you beat. And then there's probably no roll. Now we talk about this. Let me highlight this for you because it's got to be talked about. Light weapon property. This is a rough one. When you take the attack action on your turn and attack with a light weapon in one hand, you can make one extra attack as part of the same action. So if I have two daggers that both have the light weapon property, I can make an attack with both hand daggers. Just stab, stab. I get 2 stabs for the price of 1. That is a lot. The extra attack must be made with a different light weapon in your opposite hand. You don't add your ability modifier to the extra attack damage, which is very similar to dual wielding, using it as a bonus action. For example, if you take the attack action on your turn and you have a short sword in one hand and a dagger in the other, one of which has a light property, you can make one attack with each weapon, but you don't add your strength or dex on the secondary weapon. So, stab, stab for one action. I wonder if they are getting rid of the bonus action attack with the light weapon. This also now makes dual wielding incredibly powerful because, if I am a bard and I have 2 daggers and I want to use, I can then start to cast bonus action spells at the same time. I'm now double stabbing the creatures in front of me, or the ranger who has abilities that are bonus actions and now can bonus action use more of their abilities. So I wonder, I want to know. So I'm going to say this is an ugly. I'm very surprised as to how this is going to work out. I need to see it played out more. Obviously, I need to see a more expanded list of what spells are going to look like. They kind of gave us 2 that have changed. Barkskin and Guidance both have changed, and Barkskin is on the Ranger spell slot. So if Barkskin, well, the Ranger spell list in 5th edition, not obviously if they're saying it's backwards compatible, it should theoretically be on this. So now as a Ranger, I can now stab, stab, and give myself temps as a bonus action, which is dope, just powerful. That's a lot. Another good ritual casting. If you have a spell prepared that has the ritual tag, you can cast a spell as a ritual. You no longer need ritual caster. They got rid of that, so pretty awesome. Another awesome good is musical tools and now 2 gold pieces. Here's a thing I don't see a lot of people talking about, is the study action. This is a really cool action that they brought in. So it's a good, right? So you can now take a study action. So it's now an action, right? So you know how it's going to work out. When you take study action, you make an intelligence check to study your memory, a book, a creature, a clue, or an object, or another source of knowledge, and call to mind an important piece of information about it. The areas of knowledge are on the tables below. So if we go below, we can see arcane, a spell, magic items, eldritch symbols, magic traditions, planes of existence, certain creatures, aberrations, constructs, phase, obviously arcane stuff, nature, terrain, flora, fauna, weather, oozes, dragons, beasts, religion, deities, religion, hierarchies, holy symbols, cults, and rites. Investigation now changes. So now investigation helps traps, ciphers, riddles, and gadgetry. So if the GM gives you a riddle and you need a clue, you could take the study action to kind of recall, like, did you hear this riddle before? Was it in a book you read? You take the investigation action, you roll, you make a check. The DM sets a check number, so it's base 5 system. So the DM's like, well, this is kind of a hard riddle leading to a thing, so I'm going to say it's between 10 and 15. If you roll in that 10 to 15 range, or obviously if you roll higher than 15, you succeed. So cool. If I'm saying, oh, it's kind of really hard, this is like, something mid to late game. So I'm going to say it's between the 10 to 20 range. Oh, you rolled a 12. Sorry, you just forget. You don't really know. Oh, I rolled an 18. Cool, dope. You remember. This nice little clue. So that's really awesome. They give you an action you take in your turn to study a creature or something crazy happening, and that's awesome. We've all played with players. We've all been those players. Can I roll a check to know something? And now they're giving it to you. That's awesome. Now we're gonna spend some time talking about feats, and like I said, this is a ugly. This is something I dislike a lot, so I'm gonna call it an ugly. The ability score improvement or the feat. Why are we still having these competitions? I think there's room in the game to change and to say on certain levels you can acquire a feat, and on certain levels you get an ability score improvement. I think that would be acceptable, but now they kind of still are arguing which one you can do. So at 4th level, ability score improvement is a 4th level feat. So it's so that's just so extra. So you can increase one ability of your score by 2, or you can increase the ability score of two abilities by 1. You can't increase an ability score above 20. Okay, so I can either take that or I can take a feat, and I understand that concept, but why? Like, if we're trying to add more paprika to my chicken, then let me add more paprika to my chicken. Maybe say at 6, 12, and 18, you get feats, but like fighters get more because they do get more ability score improvement, and wizards get specific feats at different levels because they're wizards. Like they automatically get a special feat, and you get like actor if you're a bard, or you know what I mean, like build it into the class. And that's like kind of confusing, and I think you can make a more robust game if you just allow both to happen, or gave ability scores more frequently and only gave a +1 to one ability. So you can only go from like 16 to 17, and then you would do that at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, you know, continuing like that. And then you can build like your character like that, and because it's only a +1, and then at 4, 6, 8, 12, you can get higher level stuff. Like you would get, you know what I mean, like you would get more feats at those levels, so you're not competing between the two. I don't know, it's just me. It's kind of still like, why are they still competing? Just let me get a feat and an ability score improvement, or you know, like, oh, you get a +2 in one ability score and a feat, and you can only go to a max of 20. So if you think about it, most games stop at level 10, and right, like that, we know most games stop at level 10. Then I'm only getting that ability score twice, and that means I'm only getting 2 feats as you know, per the old rules. You know what, like, you know, proficiency bonuses and stuff like that change. So like, I'm just confused. So like I said, we only get, so unless you're playing a fighter, fighters get way more ability score improvements. Look at the standard cleric. At 4th level you get an ability score improvement, and 8th level you get an ability score improvement. If we know people aren't playing past 10th level, then why are we hampering players? And that's my suggestion. This is still an ugly for me, is the design in which you get ability scores and ability score improvements. And I understand from the GM's perspective, you hate it when your party gets creamed, but you can up the power of the monster and still have, you can make, so we see videos all the time, right? Increase the damage output of the monster, decrease the monster's DC. So their monster will be more likely to get hit, but it's also hitting like a truck every time it does hit. So that's how you balance. And we already know players always have the advantage. It's action economy. If my ranger right now, because short swords now have the light feature, the light tag to that weapon, I can attack with my dagger, bonus action, give myself temporary hit points with bark skin. I now am much more efficient as a character, and that's not including hunter's mark which they get as a natural, and I knew I wasn't going to talk about this, but I have to bring it up. They now naturally get Hunter's Mark as a class feature. So now I'm hitting you for a D6, and let's say I take a feat at level 4 that allows me to gain the Hex ability. Now they haven't revealed what Hex looks like, but in the thing, sure, I have to concentrate on it. Sure, I have to take those actions to deal with Hex, but now I'm adding a D6 plus my Hex plus my 2 weapon attack plus the temps, and that's all in 2 turns, 3 turns. In 3 turns, I'm now front unloading a ton of damage onto this enemy. That's what I'm saying. If I'm always going to win as the player. And sure, as a GM, I can send in 45 kobolds to attack my team, and because action economy, I will always win that fight. Also, kobolds have pack tactics, so like 2 kobolds can just murderize my party. You know, goblins, same thing. Just bring them in. They have advantage because flanking is now a thing. So boom, boom, flanking. I just murdered my whole party in 5 seconds. It's easy to kill a party. That's what I'm saying. It's super easy to kill a party. You could kill a level 10 party with a bunch of kobolds and goblins. It's not that hard. You just send a lot of them at the players. Sure, the wizard's gonna cast fireball once, but after that one fireball, the wizard's just gonna get flooded. That's what's gonna happen. So allow me as a player and allow my players to have more. If we're adding feats, and feats are now a standard, let me have feats. Let me get, you know what? Fine. I'll say this. Allow me to take ability scores every 2 levels. I get an ability score improvement, but 2 abilities increase by 1. That's it. And no plus 2s, just by 1, right? So sooner or later, and they can only get to a max of 20. So sooner or later, if I'm taking the standard array, right, that 8 is gonna be a 10. So I'm gonna balance that out. And then my main score, let's say I'm a barbarian, my 16 is gonna be an 18 by 2, 4, 6. By 6th level, I have an 18 in my strength, and I have a 10 in my intelligence. I'm no longer the dumb barbarian. If you're playing that way, right? Like I'm playing a character like that currently, right? But at 4th and 8th level, I also get feats, so I can balance, and that's how I would change this. That would be my big change to D&D 1. It's still backwards compatible. And it doesn't hurt anyone. It makes my players awesome, and it makes them want to maybe play longer, maybe extend the amount of play we get out of this game, because they feel like more is happening. I think a lot of the problems why people stop at 10 is because you have a lot of dead levels, quote unquote dead levels, right? Like nothing changes, nothing dramatic happens. That's my rant. Fine, old man ranting to this guy to make my players more cool. Yeah, I don't know, man. I hope you don't take offense to this. I hope no one gets mad at me for that one, but that's my rant, right? Like, allow me to have cool players. Allow my players to be cool, right? You're giving them these cool feats, and at level 20 they're getting boons, but we know they're not reaching level 20, so why have boons? So at 20th level they say, hey, listen, if you reach 20th level, you get a feat of that. You could change. You get epic boons. Yeah. There's a ton of feats here. We get dual wielder. It's prereq with any martial weapon. So now the simple and martial weapons, that's a change. It's really not much of a change. Is it repeatable? That's a thing you need to check with your tags. And no, you can only do this once. Ability score, increase your strength or dex by 1 to a maximum of 20. Hey, look, it increases it by 1. Enhanced dual wielding, when you're holding a weapon with the light property in one hand, and you can treat a non-light weapon in your other hand as if it has the white property, but it has to lack. And then the quick draw option comes with it. You can draw and stow weapons that lack the 2-handed property, when you would normally be able to draw or stow only 1. So remember how I talked about the good, it kind of broke up that. Again, you see what's happening here. So all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. Some of the bad, I think light crossbows got bumped, which is weird. Like hand crossbows, I think they got bumped. So that's an ugly. A lot of people like playing with that, but we'll talk about that with the bard. So you see stuff like here, like it's durable, prereq, con 13, You increase your con to a max of 20. You know, these are all really cool. Like these feats are all really cool. Then you have the epic boons at 20th level. By the way, when I reached that 20th level, I GM'd that 20th level thing. When we reached 20th level, I gave my players epic boons. They like, one of my players was a ranger, and the ranger player was like, okay, cool, this is my capstone feature. And I was like, nah man, just take an epic boon on top of that. So it just kind of makes sense to give your 20th level character should have epic boons. You know, epic boon, skill of proficiency, you're proficient in all skills. I guess that's great. I don't know why that's an epic boon, but meh. You know, epic boon of undetectability. You have to, so this is what we talked about, the pre-work. You're part of the expert group. Repeatable no. You can not be seen or heard by any means, magical or non-magical, while you are hidden. So there you go. And we now know rangers get invisibility for free. They just predator out there. They just predator, so they gain the hidden ability. So that might be something you would want to take into. So fighting styles are now part of the warrior group, but so things happened and certain classes are able to get fighting styles. The ranger, I know I'm talking about ranger a lot. I was just writing up stuff for the ranger, and ranger can take fighting styles. So why not? Like, it's so weird to now have to look at your chart while you're leveling and say, okay, I can take a fighting style because my chart says so. I don't think fighting styles should have been a feat. I think you should just get fighting styles, and it should be like a write out. That's an ugly for me. It just makes things a little bit more complicated for the complicated sake. I'm glad they wrote it out, but I know like we know, look at, if it's backwards compatible, look at Paladin. Paladin's in the priest group, or the healer group, whatever you want to call it, and they have protection, they have great weapon fighter, they have was the dueling fighter fighting style. So they have these. So we already know if they're following this as backwards compatible as possible. Paladin's gonna say, hey, you could take fighting style feats. So why have them? Why not just say, hey, just choose one of these and just print them? I guess you're saving money on ink. That's the big thing every time you print it, but most people buy PDFs. I have the PDFs. You know, modern, we now know if they're pushing this virtual tabletop, most people are going to have these PDFs, so you're really not saving ink at that point. I mean, except for the first time you do it. But so overall, I guess this is a good time to stop. I think I've been ranting and raving, and I feel sorry for Steve, my editor. He's gonna have to listen to this, but overall, good. There's a lot of nice changes here. We already so the skill change, the skill critical change, the D20 check change. We've seen a lot of things added that's a net positive for most. The bad, the 2-weapon action economy is seeming strange. There's a lot of things with the feats that I'm not so sure about, like the fighting style feats. Having certain classes now, it says like, yeah, you could choose a fighting style feat if you want. So it's interesting because they're removing that from the like, well, you get it, you could choose one from the fighting style feats. So it's a lot of extra wordage that I don't think needs to be there. And the ugly, I'm not I know we're trying backwards compatible. I'm still unhappy with the leveling, the way we're leveling. I think we can change that so that players can not level, but have more bang for their buck as they play, especially since we've known that, you know, through the Wizards of the Coast research, 10th, maybe 12th level is that like the cap. So no one's reaching the epic boons in these 20th level things. Stuff like that, I think needs to be fine-tuned. But again, this isn't the be-all and end-all. 40,000 people already wrote in on just the character PDF, the character beta test that we got. I expect more for the classes because people were, I think people, the way we've seen Tasha's and the way the classes kind of worked, there were a few things sorry, not classes, the races, from Tasha's and the way it changed everything. We kind of all knew the direction it was going. There was a few problems I had, Dragonborn being the main one. Their breath weapon still sucked, but all in all, they were kind of fair and cool. You know, there was the new angel type entity. I forget their name offhand. And they were cool. They had a fly thing, and people and GMs are always scared about flying because it breaks the game. But you know, you can limit that. There's a roof. Guards can see you. There are guards on duty, and they see the flying thing go up into the air. It's kind of visible. So there's ways around that, right? As a GM, 40,000 people gave in and talked about that. I think we're going to see off the bat, we're probably going to see 60, 70,000 people putting in for classes, because classes are what people like. Classes are what drives the game. You know, it's really what makes people play this, right? It's what they would like seeing. Another ugly are the groupings. I'm not a fan of that. I think they should have just left it as like fighters are fighters, wizards are wizards, and they didn't need to be in these subcategories of, you know, I feel like it was a lot of extra. But that's my rant and rave on this D&D 1 stuff. Stick around. I'm gonna be putting out videos on the classes, what I think, the good, the bad, and the ugly for the classes. I got a lot to say. I was writing stuff down already. What do you have to say? What do you feel? What's your good? What's your bad? What's your ugly on what we're looking at already? Tell me in the comments below. Do the thing, like and subscribe if you can. We're at like almost 430 subs. I think that's fantastic. I thank you all. Love you all, gamers out there. Be well, and remember, I'm GM Jared from Nothing Ventured, Nothing Game. Have a good one.